and one of them is from the leader, but you also get bonuses from the cargo you select, the spacecraft you choose, and the kind of colonists you decide to take with you. So David has selected two things to take with him that'll help with his growth and health of the city, and also life form sensors. So he'll be able to see the alien nests on the planet, which is going to turn out to be very important. And get a clinic, so growth.
The holograms on that.
Yep.
The holograms on that forklift back there looked vaguely like XCOM, like pressing A to mount against something.
Right.
That's like I was like, oh cool, I'm gonna rush for that.
And then we pick the planet we go to, and we'll start here. So David picked the African Union and several buffs that encourage growth and health and food. Now he could, so what he's doing is doubling down on the African Union's natural strengths, but he could have diversified too. So it's a choice that you make at the beginning of the game that will really color how the rest of it plays out. And
I saw an option there that said rescan for planets. Is that just essentially re-roll 3 maps that you could choose from?
Yes, and so the idea, the fiction here is that Earth is sending out lots of colony ships. We're going all over the place, and you have scouted out these 3 potentially habitable places you can go. And you can roll another 3, but it's also important to note that like in the advanced options, you still get all of the choices. So if you're a power player, you know the kind of map you want to play, you can go and select it if you want to.
Cool.
All right, so we're about to land here. David is scanning the sites.
Gotcha.
So we have, okay. Yeah, notice you can see, David can see the alien nests here, and we've got a couple around us. All right.
That's the type of thing that would normally you would just discover from expanding out into the map, right?
That's right. In the spacecraft selection in the seeded star is all about visibility. So you either get to see where the nests are. There's one option that'll let you see where the continent outlines are.
Okay.
There's one that will let you have a larger range to land in. So there are a couple different options there. So worker, again, reinforcing the growth playstyle that we kind of set up with our seeded start. So now we're looking at the tech web, and we've done a lot of talk about this. Tech web is one of the biggest departures from core Civ, from classic Civ, in that it's non-linear. You can choose to go wherever you wish. The rules are you can go to any tech provided you have researched one adjacent to it. So you could go out and then back in if you wanted to, and it's not sort of sectioned off into tiers or anything like that. So we'll pick ecology. I think the strategy David's going to go for here is a sort of a pacifist playstyle toward the aliens. The ecology tech.
Are you just like trying to interpret?
Yeah, you're driving, and I'm going to read the tea leaves here. I mean, you can talk if you want to. So one of the first decisions you have to make is how to deal with the alien threat. We haven't seen any yet, but we'll have to deal with that pretty soon.
So there. Ooh.
Yeah, right. We're gonna go off to the east here.
That's why I like to take alien sensors.
Right.
So like
gotcha.
It guides your exploration.
So it looks like we're going to, as much as possible, avoid the aliens for now?
Not necessarily. Yeah, I mean they're pretty much impossible to avoid. They're going to come and check you out, but there's some things we can do that we'll see later that will help us mitigate their ability to hurt us.
Okay, cool.
So we also have a quest decision here. We started with a clinic. That was one of the loadout options we took. And with each building, or most of the buildings, there are these little decisions that you have to make that kind of customize how they work. So they often ask some sort of philosophical question about what you would like to do. And there's no right or wrong answer. We kind of pose the question, and there are no negative implications of which answer you choose. So it's all about what you feel you would do in terms of your moral stance, or in terms of the mechanical one. So if David mouses over the selections, we can see what they'll get us.
Gotcha.
So you kind of, this is for players that don't really care about the fluff, that just want the benefits, or you're in a multiplayer game and you don't have time to read.
Totally.
So plus health, so we'll make it a little bit better with health.
That almost feels akin to something like FTL, where you are presented these things in sort of the casing of like an ethical decision, but in reality, underneath what you're choosing is statistical benefits, like
Right.
tangible benefits.
Right. We really like FTL.
Yeah.
We played the hell out of that game. We actually got to meet them at PAX East.
Yeah.
And it was pretty cool to meet those guys. And
Do you know our co-host Tara she just beat FTL on hard for the first time on the iPad version. She has sunk over 100 hours into that version alone.
Wow.
Like she's living that game.
That's awesome.
Even
Yeah,
today.
I think that the inspiration for the way that quests are set up, like very small, often binary decisions, accompanied with just enough fiction to kind of get you, put you there, but nothing more than that, letting you kind of fill in the gaps. That's the way FTL did it, and that's the way we really like it.
So while we're talking about this game's influences, I think it's kind of not really a secret that this is, in a lot of ways, a spiritual successor to Alpha Centauri.
Yeah, we have the damn manual right here.
Yeah, look at that.
Look at this thing.
So actually,
cool.
one of our executives, Chris, is an enormous Alpha Centauri fan. I told him yesterday that you guys were coming in, so he brought in that. He brought in this incredible tech tree map right here that let me see if we can.
When we had Firaxicon recently, our first big fan convention at Firaxis, and a lot of people brought their old Alpha Centauri gear to have Sid sign it. I wish we could have let Brian Reynolds know, so he could have been there too to sign stuff, because there was a lot of Alpha Centauri swag there.
So how do you guys sort of? I think there's sort of a balance to strike, right, between like specific mechanical elements of Alpha Centauri, what makes a Civ game a Civ game, and then the new things that you guys are bringing to the table just as two like sort of newcomers to leading a civilization project. So how do you strike that balance? Like, how do you break down each of those?
We did a lot of talking about that. We still do, like trying to figure out what civilization is, like how much of it we can change and still have it be civilization, how to not alienate our core fan base, but to bring in new fans and introduce this new science fiction setting, and how to deal with sort of the Alpha Centauri question. We're really honored that people kind of put this game and that game in the same place, or like at least have that hope that they'll be in the same place. But really, this is a different game, and the thing we say is that we draw from the entire legacy of civilization, whereas of course Alpha Centauri was made 15 years ago and didn't have as much of that legacy to pull from. And it's our take on the idea of Civ in space, and this may just be the two of us wanting to make our own game here.
Right.
And there's of course, even if we wanted to make a sequel, we don't own the IP rights.
Totally.
So we that was just sort of out of the question from the beginning. So we just decided to really own that.
For sure.
And there are a couple of pretty significant differences in terms of how the game is set up and the exposition and everything. I think I think this game is more optimistic in tone than Alpha Centauri. I mean, in Alpha Centauri, you literally have the spaceship Unity arriving at planet with its leaders at each other's throats, and they break the spaceship apart, and that's where the game starts. This game is a little bit different than that. It kind of there's this tragedy or this great catastrophe that happens on Earth, but the game picks up hundreds of years after that, when the nations of Earth have come together to do this great thing, which is to perpetuate the species beyond Earth.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty positive beat. And then the game is bookended by another positive beat, which are one of the victory conditions. So we try to keep that optimism in the game the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, everything that I sort of saw pre-release about Beyond Earth seemed very like aspirational in tone and very much like embracing what's exciting about like human space travel. So tell me a little bit about the victory conditions then, if that's not jumping too far.
Sure, no, that's fine. So there are three what we call technology affinities in the game, and these are kind of philosophies, really, but they're codified in mechanics that stem from the tech tree. So as you research tech in the tech tree, you begin to assume one of these three affinities: harmony, purity, and supremacy. And they each have their own victory type. So the purity victory type is actually a nod to Alpha Centauri. It's called transcendence. And I'm sorry, the harmony victory is transcendence, where you realize that the planet is sentient in sort of the Solaris style, and you devise this giant semi-organic machine that you build and can talk to it. And in doing so, and merging your consciousness with the planet, you win the game. The purity victory is interesting. You you reestablish communication with Earth, and you build this giant warp gate, and you bring settlers from old Earth to the new world. They're all about kind of making making the planet a new Earth and kind of rejecting this idea of modification of the human biology or of adapting in any way. They want to. They're more of the terraforming civ. They're going to try to make a new planet Earth and bring old Earth to it. And then Supremacy is all about augmenting ourselves to be planet agnostic, so that we don't have to worry about where we are. And their victory is similar to Purity in that they build a warp gate, but they go back to Earth and emancipate, with quotes, the Earthlings.
Whether they like it or not.
Whether they like it or not. And then there's the Contact victory, which is based on the Carl Sagan novel of the same name.
Okay.
You discover a mysterious signal, you decode it, and you find that it's instructions to build this giant machine. And after you do that, you make contact with an intelligent alien race for the first time.
This is so in the game. It's like a lowercase c. I'm assuming.
I think if we used an uppercase C, we'd get into some
tricky
legal issues.
For sure.
Yeah, but it
all caps. Who can tell?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, who can say really?
Yeah, right. But that's definitely Carl Sagan's story is definitely the inspiration.
Cool.
So to catch you up a little bit on what's going on here, David has done a couple quests, a couple building quests. He's expanding his territory. We see some stations that are appearing. So these smaller civilizations that are showing up, we're going to want to build a trade depot pretty soon to start trading with them. This one here, 2 culture, 2 science. Yeah, that's really good. So we'll build a trade vessel and start trading with that guy pretty soon.
Cool. And I noticed, so when you met your first leader earlier, you had a few choices. She offered you wine and sweets, and then you could declare war. You could do sort of all what you'd expect.
Bonjour, mon ami.
Let's see.
Un verre de vin pour commencer.
So.
I think not.
Yeah, she's gonna want some
Le
stuff.
commerce fonctionne quand on comprend l'autre.
But we don't know each other.
Right.
Does it ever behoove you to make offers that you know are unfair to gain favor with other leaders?
Sure. They have an opinion of you that can be improved by making unbalanced trade agreements. There's also this system that we've put in the game called favors, which is a small change, but basically what it lets you do is make a trade for nothing, but give them an IOU, or they give you an IOU.
Oh, tight.
So if she comes to you and is like, I need energy, this would happen a lot in classic Civ. In Civ 5, this happened all the time, where a leader would come to you and is like, I need gold, please give me gold, I have nothing to give you. And you would accept that deal to pump up their opinion of you. But now we've sort of codified that into this idea of favors, which is a diplomatic currency. So what we can do is if we have a couple favors with someone, we can cash them in to get them to do things diplomatically later. One of the real cool strategies you can use is bank favors with a Civ and then make them go to war with someone while you're making your victory attempt.
Wow.
To kind of distract them. So they're a way to manipulate the AI player in a really satisfying way. So we've also been accumulating culture, and when we accumulate culture, we get to pick new virtues. And virtues are a way to customize your civilization. There are all kinds of bonuses that you can get. And they're divided into 4 categories: might, prosperity, knowledge, and industry. And this might be familiar to Civ 5 players, and it look a lot like the social policy system from Civ 5. But we've made a couple improvements to this, probably the largest of which are the synergy bonuses. So you'll notice these little icons at the top and on the sides. As we research either horizontally or vertically down this tree, we'll start to accumulate points in these synergy bonus categories. So it rewards you for either committing to one of the categories or being broad. One of the problems that we saw with social policies was that the critical path through that system was to commit to one category of social policy, max it out before you move on to the next one. Deviating from that was never beneficial. But this system is much more flexible. So looks like we're building a pretty even Civ. So we've invested a little bit in growth, bumped up our science, better production toward buildings. So we're doing okay. We're not doing any military just yet because we haven't actually seen a lot of
The universe is
aliens.
either in progress or in entropy.
So how much of a hand did you have in sort of building out the universe of Beyond Earth and like even the script writing? Like what is your role? How far does it extend, I guess, on the sort of creative and illustrative side of what this game looks and feels like tonally?
I think, well, first of all, like our day-to-day job, David and I write code all day.
Okay.
We are programmers.
Right.
And that's pretty common at Firaxis, where the lead designers of a game are engineers. And that comes from Sid. That's how he works, so that's how we try to work too. So most of our day-to-day is programming. But with this game, since it's brand new and we didn't have the historical context to draw from, it was important for us to do some world building, which I think was a really refreshing change of pace for our team. And we were very collaborative with all of the other really creative people, intelligent people we've got on our team. We work with our concept illustrators very early to sort of flesh out what these things mean. We read a lot. We had this giant reading list in our design document. We kind of carved that up and each took sections of it and read all these books about science fiction and the history of space flight and all that, just to kind of immerse ourselves in that. And we did a lot of world building and writing, but it's all very internal. Like our approach to the narrative of this game is atmospheric, I think. Because we never wanted to get in the way of the player from telling their own story. Like Civilization is great at letting you create your own stories, this generative fiction kind of thing. We didn't want to mess with that. So we want to give the player just enough fiction to kind of whet their appetite and encourage them to fill in the gaps. So it's sort of passive. So and this kind of manifests in many ways. For example, a lot of our leaders speak these combinations of languages, which kind of gives you an idea of what happened on old Earth without us having to do any exposition. Which is great. That's that's Joss Whedon's thing.
I was about to say,
they swear in Chinese in Firefly. Exactly. Like well, how much does that say about what happened on Earth before they left, right? So we try to push as much of that stuff in as we can, and also every technology has a quote. And Pete Murray, one of our PR people, who's actually a very gifted writer, wrote most if not all of the quotes in the game, and they're in the tech tree. They're just really, really good. Some of them are funny, some of them are more serious. So what's next, David? Physics? Okay. So if you unlock the larger text in the center of the tech tree, you're going to start to unlock the basic military unit classes. And these classes, instead of obsolescing as they do in classic Civ, you improve them by leveling up an affinity. So whenever you level up an affinity, you get to upgrade one of these classes, which becomes extremely important. And they start to specialize, which hopefully we'll see here a little bit better.
Alrighty. I am noticing now that I've fully neglected the chat, so I'm going to
ask away.
Yeah, let's see what kind of questions we've got going on here.
Let's get that Trade Depot online. Yeah.
Revisory Carrot on YouTube is asking, do you know yet whether there will be Steam Workshop support for modding?
So modding is really important to us, and the modding community has just been amazing throughout the history of Civ. And when we designed the new systems and when we reworked the old systems in this game, it was very important to us that we open them up even more to modders. So you can absolutely be sure that Steam Workshop will be a part of the product. I'm actually not sure if it's supported at launch. Okay. But I know that if it's not yet, it's coming. Both we've done a lot of work to expand how much you can do with script and XML. So Lua scripting and XML scripting. But of course, we also have the DLL mod. So for all you C++ programmers out there that really want to get in there, that's there for you too. So that's going to be it. And to preempt your question out there, Twitch, we're still not supporting mods for the DLL mods for multiplayer. It turns out it's kind of like it's a very tough technical problem, and there's some security implications with distributing low-level code like that. Yeah. It's kind of the price we pay for letting people mod to the degree that they do in the engine, but something we're still working on, and we're trying, but we hear you.
Noted. I mean, it's fun to see, like, if you look at the Civ subreddit, like, people are already planning out the mods that they would like to make for this game. So you guys are, I think, blessed and maybe slightly cursed, but mostly blessed to have a community who is very reactive and very...
we love that. Yeah. Like, the mods that we see are really inspiring, frankly. The degree to which players can take this technology and make something new with it is really inspiring and amazing. And a lot of the new systems, like the Quest system, the Covert Ops system, the orbital layer, all of these brand new things, the tech web, fully moddable, and more so with script than native. We try to keep as much exposed to the modder as we possibly can, because actually it turns out to be faster for us to iterate that way. Without having to build native code, we can script it instead. That's better because it's a much faster turnaround for us.
Right.
So it's actually beneficial to us to make the game cater to modders.
And to the audience, right?
Exactly, yep.
So Animal Machine, and you may have addressed this slightly before, but he says, will the tech tree feel linear in the sense that you basically have to research everything, or can you really go down one line of a tech tree and specialize successfully?
Yeah, so in any typical game, you're not ever going to research all the technologies. You just can't. But the game will be over before you're able to do that.
Right.
So in that sense, there's always a different path you could take every game, and it was important to us that your path through the tech tree be situational and sort of be adaptive to what's happening on the map. So as your situation changes, as the game continues to evolve, we want you to change your strategy. We're always talking about how to eliminate the critical path. We never want there to be like this build order that people follow.
Right.
It's kind of like, have you heard of, was it Chess 960? Yeah, have you heard Chess 960?
I haven't.
Chess 960, basically the rules of Chess 960 are you have the row of pawns and then they randomize the distribution of units in the back.
Okay.
And what that does is it eliminates the opening game, or it doesn't eliminate it, but it eliminates the necessity to memorize openings. And because of that non-determinism, you really have to think about how you're going to open the game in a different way. And that's what we wanted to bring with this. So things like the staggered starts of the civs, they don't show up all at the same time. They arrive at different times with different buffs to help them catch up with you.
Yeah.
The non-linear tech tree, the aliens that are very volatile and can really swing the game one way or another. Quests, all of these things contribute to a much more non-deterministic game. And because of that, the tech tree has to be adaptive. So yes, you can absolutely specialize. You will not research all the techs in one game, and it has a lot of replayability.
It's funny because I feel like just looking at the state of games over the past, let's say 24 to 36 months, like there's been an enormous, undeniable interest in like roguelikes as a concept and procedurally generated games as a concept. And it seems like you guys have leaned pretty heavily into allowing player expression to sort of drive the development in the direction of this game, which is really cool to see.
Right, and like we said, we play these kinds of games. Like we played a lot of FTL, we play a lot of roguelikes, but Civilization has always been a game about self-expression. Like you embody the civ that you play, and it's always been this wonderful way to create your own stories and to have this great procedurally generated experience. And that goes way back. We do not take credit for that.
Right.
The two of us. I mean, we like to underscore that aspect of this game, and we put systems in place to do that. So, I hear intense music. David, are you fighting? Not yet. Okay. Well, there's some aliens up to the north. It looks like, and you're about to get your first. In 13 turns, it looks like you're researching power systems. So we're about to get our first. Affinity upgrade. So once we research that technology, we'll be able to upgrade our military units. Ah, that's why. It's the siege worm.
So wait, what is that? Is that a drill? What am I looking at? That some sort of burrowing creature?
That's the Shai Halud, the siege worm from Dune. There he is, right there, just knocking on your door.
I think you're very much wearing your inspirations on your sleeve with this game, which I appreciate. It feels honest.
Yes.
So are there different races of alien that we can?
Sorry.
Oh yeah, sure. Just one last question for you, and then I think we'll swap
switch
mics.
up. Sure.
Let's talk a little bit about the different aliens that you can encounter. I'm assuming they're not all dune worms.
Actually, I'll let David field that question. David's the alien guy, so.
David, do you feel up to the task of playing and talking at the same time, or do you want to swap?
I'll hand this mic off to you, and then I can drive with the mouse.
Awesome.
Does that sound all right? I don't even need to switch places.
Cool. And while I have both of you on the mic for at least half of this question, let's talk a little bit about your project before this, because I was a really big fan of the iOS game Haunted Hollow, which I discovered, I think, partly because of this job and like Zach Miner's affection for you guys and for Firaxis in general. So I played a lot of that with my roommate, but that game was, from the outside looking in, and maybe I'm wrong, a substantially smaller project in scope than this.
Yes.
How did you two personally adjust to building like an enormous full-size retail game after making a smaller iOS game?
Well, Civilization's a really big game, but the team that made it is actually pretty small. It's not that much bigger than the Haunted Hollow team was.
Okay.
We did have a lot more like outsourcing resources and things like that. But I don't know, moving to the Civ team, we took a lot of the Haunted Hollow people with us, like our UI designer's the same, our AI and gameplay programmers, our principal engineers are the same. Those guys worked with us on Haunted Hollow, and we were a very tight-knit group and have become an even more tight-knit group with the rest of the Civ team. And it's just been really amazing, and I think it was easy for us to come into this game and make this game because the team has been doing this for so long. Like our team back at home has been making Civ for 25 years.
Right.
Firaxis has been making Civ. So I think that our leadership at Firaxis can put young designers with big ideas and a lot of ambition into, at the helm of this game, because they know that the Civ team is just top notch.
Yeah.
And I think that made us very comfortable, at least, to be there. I'll hand this off.
All right, cool. Hi, David. Welcome to the world of the microphone. The mic'd people. All right, here we go. And while we're doing this, I'll call some more questions. Hi.
How's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
Fine.
Yeah. Seems all right.
Been focused on the game.
For sure.
Now I need to all right, we're gonna.
So I was in the process of getting embarkation to get down to that station, so my vessel can go.
Yep.
And to get across to the little island.
Yep.
Real quickly, we have a question in the chat from Zach Miner. It says, why is Zach not playing this right now?
Why is Zach not playing this?
Because he's hard at work at PlayStation, you know?
Yeah. He's only got himself to blame, really.
Right. You did this to yourself, Zach.
Right. Let that be a lesson.
Right. Sure. RPB 1066 on Twitch is asking, do the aliens get more challenging the longer a game goes on?
Well, it depends on how you define that. So they don't get stronger, which is to say that they don't improve in combat strength the way you do. They're animals. They sort of have their evolutionary point in time, and they don't learn or adapt with technology. But the way that they act on the planet and the sort of balances with which the various types will be produced by nests will definitely change over the course of the game, especially if you are aggressive. So there's a wide variety, or there's a variety of alien types. There's the wolf beetle, the raptor bug, the manticore, the sea dragon, the siege worm, and the kraken, and the drone. And depending on what sort of the aliens' global agenda and global opinion is of everyone, they more or less of each of those types will spawn. So when you start the game, you're mostly likely to see wolf beetles, those are the easiest and simplest. But if you are sort of riling up the aliens, they'll start to deploy their more aggressive, powerful life
All
forms.
planets possess
And I noticed we got a message from another leader who says, I see that you have found value in the aliens as we have. Let's work together on this.
Yep.
What are the ramifications of that conversation there?
Well, she's commenting that I've refrained from attacking, or we've refrained from attacking the aliens, and we're leaving them alone, which has, it can be part of your grand strategy about how you want to deal with the aliens. And if she's taking the same tactic on her Civ, she wants to reinforce this so that we're more likely to be on good terms from now on. Okay. So that she's basically saying, I have the same perspectives that you do. We should get along. We should trade. We should have good diplomatic relations. And she's also kind of saying, we will be friends as long as we agree. If you decide to start killing all the aliens, right, I'm not going to like that.
There's a message in there.
So really, she's making a little comment that's saying, right now, good things are happening for us diplomatically, and here's why.
Gotcha.
It's because we're both doing this thing or not, as the case may be, to the aliens. So I can take that and fold it in and be like, all right, so now I know, depending on what I do with the aliens, I have an idea of how it will affect her.
And so is the soldier? All right, we've got our soldiers here, right? They've emerged.
Yeah. The problem is I haven't explored, so I can't see it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's what I was trying to do.
All right. Well, yeah. Okay, now I see what you're saying.
Red Pawn 17 says, is there any benefit to settling next to a river like in Civ 5?
Yeah, rivers make the terrain more valuable. I mean, they don't get unique buildings, but the land around them will be more fertile. Residue will grow better. It's a good spot.
XSegX says, these guys do not look like game developers. They don't have beards. So
you must be confusing us with the team that made Evolve.
Right. Oh, almost all beards.
Yeah, right. They took that way too seriously. No, I don't think you can even. Will's not even capable of growing one.
No.
He's actually 14 years
You guys weren't kidding about injecting young blood into the Civ team, I guess.
Just turned 29. Come on, guys.
Okay. Seekings 177 is asking, will the soundtrack also be sold alongside the release of the game?
Oh, actually, do you know the answer to that?
I would really like to see it, yes. But it'll be distributed.
Yeah.
Say that.
It'll definitely be distributed. I don't know if it'll be sold independently at or concurrent with the release of the game or what, but it'll definitely be available.
It'll be on the disc.
It'll be on the disc.
This is a big question from Wizard Zed, and the question aligns pretty well with the name Wizard Zed.
Build a mine. Yeah.
He wants to know, has Firaxis ever entertained any plans of a fantasy-themed Civ game?
Well, that is a good question.
Yeah.
I'd say that Firaxis has entertained lots of ideas about what could be done with the Civ. I mean, Oh, that's why I can't trade with it, because they ate it.
Because they ate it. Oh, well.
Well, you may as well let go of that trade vessel, or use it to trade with somebody else.
Yeah.
I was like, it's right over there. What? Oh well, aliens destroyed it. So Civ is almost indivisible from its historic context, and thus far has been. Alpha Centauri being the only exception, and now this. So the things that motivated us to make Civilization Beyond Earth are more than just it's an alternative way to do Civ. We're genuinely enthusiastic about the future context, and we view it as a very natural extension of what makes Civ great. Like, Civ is a story of mankind as it really happened, albeit in a sort of a what-if remixing kind of way. And when we made this game, we wanted to carry that banner. We wanted this game to be like what would happen, what could really happen. Like the game is science fiction, but always with an eye towards plausibility. We say that a lot in interviews, and we really mean it. The game was designed to feel like it could really occur, to be rooted in real science, at least at first, until you get to the more sci-fi stuff. And to us, so for us, that means it belongs to the Civ legacy. Like it is a Civ game because it has that. And so
are you saying this game is canon in the Civ universe?
I'm saying we would like it to be canon. We view it as such, and we think that it'll take a place in the Civ canon. Yes.
Cool.
But as for whether totally fictitious or outlandish context for Civ could be done, who could say? We really couldn't possibly know right now. But that Civ sort of tied to reality and to playing with things that we actually know and actually love is part of what makes it great to us. Part of what we think makes it such an enduring, valuable franchise, and we want to preserve that.
Gotcha. Whirlwind 86. Oh, sorry. What were you gonna?
Oh.
You're going to make some strategic decisions real quick?
No, I'm just commenting on what's going on. I guess you're okay.
So here's a question from a Whirlwind86 on Twitch who asks, in Civ 5, the AI at higher difficulties had some big advantages against the player. Did you integrate difficulty scaling differently in this than in Civ 5?
Yes and no. So we integrated it that way, plus some other more sophisticated ways.
Gotcha.
So the AI does get advantages over you in the very higher difficulty levels. But we also spent a lot of time just flat out improving the way it contemplates the game and the way that it understands advantage and power. So the AI is a little more shrewd kind of across the board. You'll notice that even on the normal difficulty levels, that you sort of have to know what you're about or pay attention to what they're doing so that you can thwart them at the right time. And on the higher difficulty levels, we sort of take the shackles off of that and let them really play efficiently.
Gotcha.
So if you can't use that vessel, you should axe it and make you've got more than enough money, you should just buy a land one and send it. That's one of my favorite tactics. I like to play economic power civs, and so I usually like to save up money and then just buy the things that I need.
Over on the YouTube side, we are getting a pretty in-depth philosophical debate over whether or not it is right to call these aliens, since we're on their planet and technically we're the aliens.
Well, they on YouTube are not the first to think along those lines.
Okay.
But so there's two reasons. One is that it's pretty easy to tell them apart from humans. It's the humans, and then the aliens are everything else, since it's a variety of types. And also because it's a little sort of anthrocentric,
right?
Which we enjoy, because
it sounds like humanity.
So it's a game, yeah. Like when we get to this planet, to us it's ours now, and they're the alien.
So essentially, we're not just humanity; we're America, is what it sounds like.
Well,
Well, I guess not in this game.
You draw your own conclusion.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can contemplate the particular identity that we chose to give to the American flavored Civ in this game, and draw your own conclusions about what we think about what America could be like in the future.
Gotcha.
The Australians are eating up your territory.
You know, I'm gonna kill him.
You should. Yeah. I was cooperating with Kavitha and Elodie, trying to anyway,
Yeah, we're gonna go.
because they're on the other side of the planet. I
Start
don't care.
a war here.
Gosh.
Yes.
United, we stand. Divided, we fall.
Oh, wow.
So an early aggressive move, which is funny because that's totally not what I set out to do with my seeded start, but goes to show how the game forces you to play adaptively. Like when tactics call for it, like here's this outpost that's totally weak. Yeah, military.
Yep.
There's no units around. Outposts are vulnerable. They can't defend themselves, and they have very low hit points and combat strength. This is an attack of opportunity. Like they're encroaching on our territory. We have soldiers in position. We have no previous diplomatic state. So we're going to try to like sack the outpost while we can and like take a bite out of the Australians' expansion plans.
It's interesting. So you were not forced to fight there, but the context was so delicious that you had to do it. Like they were encroaching on your territory. It was the right move at that time for this class.
And time will tell whether or not that was really the right move. But was that your Explorer?
That was my Explorer. Yeah.
Bilal Draz on YouTube is asking, how does your affinity affect diplomatic relations with civs who went down another path? Will they oppose you heavily, or will it be more based on your history with the civ prior to affinity decisions?
Those two will work with or against each other. So everything that you've done diplomatically with a civ will influence them, positive or negative.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a long history of friendship, you'll have strong sort of momentum to remain friends. But the more the two of you devote yourselves to divergent affinity, so like if you're both kind of middle level affinities, like level 5, 6, it won't matter that much. But if one of you is like 12 or 15, or let alone if both of you are really heavily devoted to divergent affinities, that will be a pretty strong incentive away from cooperation, because really what we're representing is fanaticism. We just don't understand how you can think like that anymore, and vice versa. So as everybody in the game gets more devoted, which is inevitable as the game progresses, it becomes harder and harder to like remain on really good terms with people of a different affinity. You sort of are nudged into cooperating with people whose affinity matches yours and whose interests match yours. So you can do it, you can try to keep it going as long as you can, but at some point you should probably think critically about what you're getting out of the relationship and where it's going.
It's hard not to hear what you're saying. It sounds so much like just a friendship relationship of like, eventually your beliefs have diverged so much. It's like a macrocosm, I guess.
Yeah, like if I'm really affinity and if I'm really strong supremacy and he's really strong harmony, I might have to just ask at some point, maybe he's just not that into me anymore.
Right, exactly. I mean, I think at their core, the Civilization games are about humanity and human relationships. So
right, and that's important. Like, as much as there's like all of this alien and all of this future sci-fi in this, Civ is a story of mankind. Is what I was saying earlier about like what makes it sort of makes it special among 4X games, and it was really important for us to make this game the story of humankind too, which is part of why we call them aliens, part of why diplomacy and like the Civ competition is the major obstacle in the game.
Gotcha. So
like it's about what happens to humanity in the future, not what happens to the planet.
Looks like Hutama is backing down a little bit from some of the encroachment.
He wants to make peace before he loses his outpost. That's not really that much energy, but you don't really have the military power to take that outpost.
I just got this guy here, but I think he's going to get there before I can kill him. I've got another Marine up there.
Well, it's a tough call. I mean, really, you don't lose that much by keeping it going. You don't really need open borders from him. I'd say refuse and take your shot. Ooh, we better get the recruits. Yep. Now go.
Don't kill.
Let's see what happens.
Still trying to take the outpost?
Yeah. I mean, they're not like those are just
Okay.
Got there. So now you're
quite get it.
now you're now you're in bad shape.
Those aliens that are moving in as well?
Yeah, right.
Well, the aliens are they're curious. There's a lot of noise. There's loud noises. They want to know what's going on.
So I suspect I might know the answer to this question already, but Abby the Observer on Twitch is asking, why can't humanity settle cities underground in the ocean or on top of mountains in the future?
Well, maybe they could, but it's just not efficient. I mean, when you land on a new world, the just frankly surviving, finding things to eat is a lot harder than we take it for granted. We take it for granted on Earth how easy many things are for us because the planet we evolved on this planet, like we match it, right? When you land on the new world, nothing can be taken for granted. So humanity will settle where they can and live where they can, and like only by the very end of the game could you conceivably make the argument that they are, able to build oceanic cities and things like that.
I was not prepared for an in-universe answer, but I really enjoyed it.
We're on it, man.
Well, we did think about lots of stuff like that.
Yeah, it seems like it. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, that's kind of like the blessing and the curse of sci-fi, is that anything's possible, right? Like anything could be explained. It's the future. We're capable of whatever you can think of. But you, like, as designers, it's incumbent on us to like look at that space and think critically about, all right, what's fun? What's most fun to play? What's most thematically appropriate? It's going to make players invest in the game and not confuse them with like this wide array of options or like strange ideas that have to be sort of comprehended before you can use them. Speak to what they know and make things that are fun. So yeah, maybe it's possible that we could build like cities underground, but it's more fun to build cities where they can like reap the terrain and then focus on the other parts of the game that are entertaining.
I know that designers at Wizards of the Coast, when they talk about how they build Magic sets, is they refer to it, and maybe this term extends beyond them, but they refer to it as top-down design. I think when they design a set based on a theme and then build the gameplay second, and then bottom-up design where they do the gameplay and then build a theme around it.
Queued up.
Yeah, it's funny when you play a Magic set, I think that's apparent. You can look at it and see what the feel of the set was meant to accomplish. And actually, there's a lot of design that went into this game that kind of went from the same way. Like the way the factions were designed, and the seeded start was meant to say, like, well, how's your game going to feel when you build these combinations? The planet types and the different landmass and terrain combos that you can play with, from like frozen Arctic tundra planets to planets of nothing but ocean with tiny islands everywhere. It's like, how's that game going to feel?
Right.
Yeah, a lot of that sort of thing goes into the way a Civ game is made. And now you've got split purposes with the.
I didn't mean to build two colonists, but it had queued one up.
Well, use it while you have it. I think you may want to. You can try for peace with Utama and see what it'll do.
Give him a couple more turns to think about it.
Put that missile rover over there. When you get it. I would wait.
Put him in the water.
We've gotten a few questions on Twitch about potential DLC, or I think typically with Civ it's expansions, right? Jabib, well, first of all, Seeking is wondering, do you guys have any plans for DLC?
Well, there actually is one that's already included in the pre-order. It's a pack of special planet types, special map scripts that you can play on unique worlds. And so we're excited to see how that does. I think the assumption is if it does well, we could consider others, but we can't make any further comment on it right now.
Yeah. So that probably answers the other question we got from Jobby Blobby, which is asking, would Firaxis ever consider doing a Seasons Pass option for people who know that they're bought in for all the DLC? That's probably not a decision for you guys to make.
No. Yeah, it's not. Nor could we tell you whether that would be worth it, because we can't tell you.
Whether it's happening.
Right.
Totally. Nukaholic is asking, will there be nation/sponsor-specific peace and war themes, and on what are they based?
Does he mean music themes?
I think so, because you hear the two different types of music. That's how you know that something's up. So I guess he's asking, like, based on what leader you pick, will there be fundamentally different music for each of the different cultures?
That's a good question. No, because they're not historical identities. But what we did do, or rather what the musicians did, was make affinity and planet type based themes. So there are definitely different themes for this the game based on the situation that you're in. But they're not derived from the sponsors, but from sort of the larger themes in the game, the planet and the affinities. And that's once again sort of an example of us kind of de-emphasizing the national identity as sort of the dominant part of your identity, and trying to focus on the affinity, like who you started off on Earth as, or who funded your expedition. Now it's time. Is like the first part of many pieces that will become who you are in the game. But the biggest and most important piece is the affinity that you choose, because that's what you work on the whole game. You are actively choosing it every step of the way, and at the end of it, it really does represent your ideas, your perspective. So, hence the music emphasizes that.
There's also music for the biomes.
Right, and what I was saying about the planet types.
Oh, gotcha.
The lush versus the arid versus the fungal.
Okay.
Need a clinic. Your health is eating it.
No, it's gonna tank.
It's going to tank hard when that one finishes.
Yep, I got some time.
That dude is about. Oh wow.
Let's just park you right here.
Ben BB155 is asking if this is a PC only release.
No, the game will be released on PC, Mac, and Linux.
Oh, gotcha.
But
Does that mean Steam OS?
Yeah, it'll work on SteamOS. So
Cool.
yep. We've had a. Oh, I can't answer.
Okay,
I have
no problem.
mic. I have no mic, but we've had a Steam box in the office for a while. And
Oh, gotcha.
like futzing around with the controller and stuff.
yeah. What Will said was we have a Steam box in the office that engineers and others have been tinkering with to see what could be done with it.
I think I remember when the Steam controller prototype first emerged, I feel like Civ was the go-to game that people would point to as what this controller was built for that you couldn't do with a traditional 360 controller as easily.
Yeah.
So is that something you're still actively thinking about, is optimizing for a Steam controller?
Well, we're thinking about optimizing the game for every platform we can realistically shoot for. I remember when that happened, they had that in the office, and like the guys who made Civ 5 got to try it.
Yeah.
You know, work with it. I remember the UI designers had an interesting time contemplating alterations for the user interface to make that better.
Totally.
But I'm not entirely sure where that stands right now.
Right. Because presumably Civ 5 was retrofitted to work with the Steam controller.
Wow. This is rebase, not
Oh,
making.
okay.
Sorry. What?
Oh, just like the way that all the Steam controller demos that I've seen in person, like at PAX and stuff, were games that were retroactively added, like support was added for them. So it'd be interesting to see like if it came from the developer's end, how it would be different.
Right. Still have makeup route.
That's what I was looking for. There we go. All right, let's trade with
Get your outpost stuff.
yes. This city here, man. All that.
It's a good spot.
Yeah.
And there's nobody around.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta watch out.
Cancel there.
Get your worker down there. Do you have worker anymore?
I think it got eaten.
Oh.
So as soon as this clinic is
If you have a lot of money, just buy one.
that's a good point.
So that's something that I don't
It's
feel
my
like
go-to answer. Can you buy it?
Money.
I feel like very rarely did you encounter the problem in Civ 5 that something that you were looking for has been eaten and is no longer available. Like that's
Always
a
eaten.
it's a new problem for this game.
Yes, it is.
Wait, tell them about the workers captured by aliens for a while.
I don't remember.
FYI, we've been told that you can be picked up on our mics apparently, according to the chat. So
Okay,
if you want to
you can
speak,
hear me?
yeah, as long as you
Not too
speak,
bad.
Okay.
project, and we'll be able to hear you.
Well, there was a time when we had like some of the old code from Civ 5 running around in there for barbarians, so that the aliens would actually capture workers
Okay.
and other civilian units, and they'd become like alien workers, I guess. They wouldn't really do anything, but it's just kind of funny to think about what's actually going on there. Like, you know,
Right, that almost makes sense in this universe.
almost makes sense.
This worker was raised by alien wolves.
Yeah.
Right. It's hard not to write a story in your head about how that happened.
The Jungle Book alien version.
Yeah, why not? Zara FCS is asking, are there great person alternatives in this, like the equivalent of that system?
No, there aren't, and that's an interesting question because great people are both. They're for two reasons in Civ 5. They're because they're to give you like special, unique powers that reward certain kinds of play, like heavy culture or tall Civ play. But they're also one of those wonderful parts of what makes Civ powerful, which is the sort of captive history. They're familiar and recognizable characters whose achievements are evocative, and so you want to collect them. They're cool little things to have. But with no history to base it on, we would have to invent all the characters, which would end up mean we'd have to sell them every time. Like, why is this person great? What are they capable of? And as we started to examine the prospect of that, we realized that the second goal of getting these unique abilities that are very powerful that you can only get under certain kinds of conditions was what we were trying to achieve with the orbital layer. That is this alternative play space above the game where you can put down things that bend the rules on the ground and in all kinds of ways. And you have all kinds of interesting decisions to make of fitting them into the orbital space and competing with others for orbital space, and then their timing, because they deorbit, and then unlocking them in the web so you can get the ones that do the things that you need. So what we ended up doing was, I guess you could say, pillaging the best parts, plundering rather, the best parts of the great person idea, which is these unique abilities, and putting that power into the orbital.
Cannibalizing it.
Yeah. There you go. So this guy's offering he's like saying, I need something from you. I don't really have anything to offer in return, so I'm going to give you a favor. Basically an IOU, a diplomatic promise to repay it at some date, which if we accept, we can hold over him and cash in for at least this back, if not something more valuable later.
And favors are essentially a separate currency, right?
They're only in diplomacy if you accept, and then go and hit the diplomacy pane.
What's ours is
he's doing the same thing.
Yeah, more. Let's just rack up favors all day.
Even though I was just killing you.
Yeah. So you can see how many favors you have over every leader that there is, and you use them either in the deals or in discussions. If you're discussing something with a leader and you ask them to commit to a certain behavior, and they say no, then if you have enough favors to change their mind, you'll see an alternative dialogue prompt which basically says, "I insist." Spend favors, and they will say yes.
Gotcha.
So that's how you get them to do what you want them to do.
Well, on the subject of currency, JJMC on YouTube is asking, will currency matter more in this game than it did in Civ 5? In Civ 5, I found that money was hardly ever an issue, unlike in previous Civ games.
I think you'll find that it matters a lot. There's a lot. Energy isn't exactly like money. I mean, it's similar in that you can accumulate and store it, and you can have a positive or negative income, so you can consume your reserves. And you can use it to rush build things, but mostly what it's for is maintenance. Like, you're basically using it to power your civ. So all the buildings, many of the units, and many of the improvements have energy maintenance. So the bigger and more powerful your civ gets, the more energy you're going to need to run it. And so, at least in that sense, that currency will become very, very significant. And then, of course, all the other ones will have a huge impact on your game as well. Speaking of which, you need to do something about your health.
I know, I'm trying. I'm getting it. It was 9 a minute ago. Now it's a little better. So I bought the Cyto Nursery. I suppose I can buy.
You need the Pharmalabs.
The Pharmalabs too.
Yeah. Although you need to do it in your bigger city. It's capped population.
Yeah.
So you don't have enough money anymore.
Over on Twitch, Alpha X Wolf is asking, what happens when a station becomes surrounded by a faction's borders? Do they disappear? Are they now excluded to only trade with a faction that has absorbed them?
They don't disappear because they own the tile that they're on.
Right.
Another faction cannot claim it without destroying the station. Owning all of the access points to a station could mean that you ensure exclusive trade as long as you don't grant open borders to anyone else.
Gotcha.
But that would be difficult. Like, you'd have to have cities on 2 to 3 sides, and it would have to grow for a while.
I just want to say also that I'm really enjoying the caliber and the specificity of the questions that we're getting from the Civ fans in the audience. It's been...
Thumbs up, Civ fans.
Yeah.
We're used to, I mean, like a lot of our fans know this game really, really well.
Yeah.
And what we really like about these live streams is the opportunity to
Failed it.
to speak directly to them and really get down to kind of the nitty gritty. Because like, if we talk to, you know, if the venue is different, a lot of times we're talking at much higher level.
Right.
About the grand concepts of the game. We're doing that here too today. But questions that really get to the meat of how the game works,
right.
We're always very happy to talk about.
Cool. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a cool thing I think about, like 2014 is that access. Like think about Civilization 15 years ago. Like that level of direct access would be a pretty big undertaking on both sides. But now, like the internet has made that democratized it a bit.
We're getting there.
Clawing
my way back.
Health hole. Yes, Kavitha. Yes.
Yes. Yes, please.
She is good to have as a friend.
I got this.
This is looking pretty good. You just
parked right here.
Yeah, don't try sailing anywhere.
Nope.
You just need to like get on that health and build all the clinics, cyto nurseries, and pharma labs you can. And next time you get a tech, check and see where if there's any cheap health gains.
Yep.
Virtues too.
I can talk about that filter, so you can.
Yeah, yeah.
The Hex Mage is asking, will we always see the same aliens on a planet, or?
The same alien creature types? Yeah, the catalog of aliens is present on every planet you
gotcha.
But
in a given game, you may not.
In a given game, you may not. Chances are you will see them all at least once. You may not have much encounters with them. Like, we've had a very light alien game because I opened with a tactic that was meant to keep them out of my borders. And it's been working just fine. But it's important to note that the alien creature types may be the same from game to game, but their behavior is different based on both the map and the biome.
Gotcha.
So there are adjustments to their spawn rates, their movement rates, their sort of levels of aggression under certain circumstances, depending on whether it's like dense jungle or big open deserts or fungal hills or whatever.
There's a lot more worms in the desert.
Again,
yeah, get that.
Alluding back to
right.
the inspiration there.
They're not. It's just very thinly veiled here.
Gotta unpost that.
I think you sort of explained this in regards to great people, but Mandena says, with no great people, religion, or tourism systems, what replaces the micromanagement of those systems?
Not having to do that?
Having
yeah,
right.
It sounds like a problem that we fixed.
Cool.
No, like, let me take that question seriously and not snarky. Like, like the late game sort of opportunities that tourism and great people provided, were very sensitive to. But that was sort of like, I would say, by the time that the Civ 5 had both of its expansions, it had sort of hit a good stride for things to do at every stage of the game.
Okay.
We designed this game holistically with sort of the same thing in mind. So when you start the game, you have the same kind of early things to take care of, like exploration and infrastructure and so on. But one of the things that makes our late game much more interesting is sort of the continued expansion of the orbital race. Like when your territory starts to really overlap and you need to maintain power there, you fight in the orbital space a lot more. Covert ops becomes a huge deal because everybody has, oh, there you go, you're starting it. Everybody has spy agencies and are competing for attacks of opportunity, defense, trying to get intrigue up or down in cities. So there's a lot of like kind of, it's its own kind of miniature war in its own right, where people are watching the global intrigue space to figure out where to send their spies and when to do what operations, like trying to dogpile on cities that are weak, or like bring your spies back if your cities are suffering and so on. So there's more than enough to keep your attention there. And then the big one is quests, particularly the victory quests. So victories in Civ 5 are almost all passive except for science and domination. You simply sort of achieve them. Tourism being kind of the exception, or when they added tourism, that was a little bit different. But all of our victories are these elaborate long form quests with multiple stages and things that you have to build and protect and do. So as you get to the end of the game, the attention will focus to executing and protecting your victory attempt, or watching for the other players to do theirs and attempting to unravel it to make sure they don't win the game before you do. So I think the gentleman who asked that question will find more than enough to keep his himself busy turn to turn.
Cool.
Throughout the game.
Here's a fun name. 3KWBG5C says, is there a return of Civ 5 strategic view?
There is not.
Gotcha.
And actually, this is a good question. I think I think a few people have asked it kind of offhand, but nobody's ever asked us directly why there's no strategic view. It's a feature that many people liked, and especially for accessibility reasons, like people with visual impairments or other reasons why the sort of the main game is difficult to read, found it very useful, and we're very sensitive to that. But well, the big sort of stumbling block was the addition of the orbital layer. That if you jump into orbital layer real fast, the way that this overlays on the map, and unfortunately there's none in orbit. I'll just one over here. Requires this dual level of information that is best expressed in 3D space. So representing the orbital layer in an intelligible fashion on the strategic view, which is itself very information dense, a compressed version of the game, became an extremely difficult problem, and one that it ultimately became too costly to solve. We just couldn't come up with a solution that was satisfactory, that would actually have improved the game.
Gotcha.
So unfortunately, while we do recognize it provides some benefits, we ultimately elected not to pursue it.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Zach Camp is asking, does everyone at Firaxis get stuck at the office for hours in those sort of one more turn mindsets, or are you guys immune to that?
It definitely happens to us more often than you would think.
Okay.
We at least have the advantage of playing it sort of during the day as part of development, so there's a lot of, I guess you could say, we sort of get satisfied for our day's worth of Civ through regular work.
Understandably.
But I mean, I've definitely been on my way out at the end of the night and seen people on the team or on other teams poring over a game of Civ, clicking laboriously through each turn, doing exactly the same thing that we joke about all the time that Civ is meant to do: suck you in and make you look up and realize you've been there for 3 hours.
Yeah.
So we at Firaxis are fans of our games too, and are every bit as enthusiastic about playing them as the fans out there are.
Shoot. Get that clear miasma tech yet.
Do you have the miasmic repulsing?
I do, yeah.
You buy it?
Can I buy it?
Yes, you can.
Bang!
There's more than one way to skin an alien cat.
GD Nerd is saying that you guys are the fastest Civ players of anyone they've watched.
Well, we have played this game a lot.
Makes sense, yeah. Probably more than most people alive.
Sure. Well, I wouldn't. That's a bold claim. Having witnessed some of our most elite fans play this game, both in testing and at Firaxicon, which happened recently. I don't know. I'm sure people out there maybe have or have not heard. Firaxicon was Firaxis's first ever community convention, or community day, which just happened a couple of weeks ago, where we got about 250 fans join us in Baltimore, visit the studio, and basically have everything everybody loves Firaxis day. When it was really, really cool. It was unbelievably affirming. Everyone in the studio was just overjoyed to meet the fans, and we all had a wonderful time.
That's awesome.
But a few of those who came were VIPs, who are sort of, I should say, the most elite of Firaxis fans, who have been playing our games and even helping us develop them for years. And if you think we're fast and adept, some of them are almost machine-like.
Wow.
So it definitely comes with just lots and lots of experience.
It is reaffirming also when your audience is so remote the way it is for, I think, game developers and people on our side to go to events like PAX or any event where you get to get face-to-face with the fans of your game and really remember. It's a good reminder that they're real people and that there's a lot of them. Yeah, and
and the reverse is also true. Will and I are spokespeople for the game because we're lead designers. The lead producer often is as well. And so we've done traveling around. We speak to press and to fans fairly frequently. But a lot of the rank and file members of the team, the guys who are really getting it done, the team that makes Civ, the guys that make the magic, very, very rarely do they leave Baltimore and actually get to meet the people who love it so much. And so it was really special for the Firaxians, I think, to get to look face to face with the people who adore their work and hear them express it. We go on the road a lot representing the game, and we always try to be careful to say it's not just us. We didn't make this game alone. We're just a part of a large, very talented and very dedicated team.
About how big is the team, in manpower, if it can?
Oh, we don't usually say it. It's sort of company policy.
Sure.
But the team that made this game with us is the Civ team, and they've been making Civ for years and years and years, and very, very good at it.
Cool.
And yet, despite that, like I said, don't always get the opportunity to really see how much it means to people. You know? And Firaxis kind of was a chance for them to do it.
That's awesome. Omniclast is saying that they haven't heard very much about the multiplayer so far.
Oh, it's funny. We just the other day did a little multiplayer thing with GameSpot, and if you're familiar with multiplayer from Civ 5, you'll see all the things that you recognize, all the modes with a lot of bug fixes put in, a lot of improvements to the UI. 10 turns to prepare. Oh, that's interesting. Well, you feel like going back to war with Tutana?
Well, I have no military yet.
So is 10 turns enough?
I don't know.
You could just say no for now.
So your options are yes right now, no, give me 10 turns, and how dare you.
Right. So you can say it's sort of like the white no, which is I just don't want to talk about it.
Right.
How dare you, which is like the reverse, where you say Hutama's my friend, I'm now mad at you. There's a deferred yes, you know, yes, but not quite yet because maybe you're got to build some military. And then yes, I'm ready to go right now. I was already planning on it.
Are there mouse over tooltips for what each of those mean? Or
No.
they're pretty self-explanatory, I guess.
Yeah, like most of the buttons, or sorry, the options that are given to you as a player are meant to be pretty self-explanatory.
Cool.
Anyway, I was saying about multiplayer that all of the options from Civ 5 are there, plus a lot of bug fixes and UI improvements. Plus, we finally added the pit boss mode, which a number of fans have been asking for a while. So,
But I think because the game is so different in terms of the asymmetry and the PvE and kind of the non-deterministic way that this game tends to play out, the characteristics of multiplayer change because of that. So even though the modes are very similar, the way that multiplayer kind of feels and plays out it's going to feel a lot different if you're used to Civ 5 multiplayer. Mechanically, you know, the way that the games are set up and how you play the game, except with the addition of pit boss, are the same, with bug fixes. But
yeah.
I think the game itself makes for a much different multiplayer experience. Okay, I need some. So I decided to go to war.
Need some siege units.
So I need some siege. Let's see.
I don't know if I would bother with anyone but McGann doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, well, yeah, because the city just kind of needs to get its feet. I would try to get it to grow. But McGann, are you going master control?
Yeah.
Yeah, let that finish.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you can.
There's a guy on the YouTube chat named Brother Ariman who seems to know a whole lot about the game already. He says, they're currently on the lush biome, which you could compare to the Avatar movies. Also, there's a third biome called the fungal biome, which turns the ground purple and the forest into mushrooms.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right. You've seen some other gameplay videos.
Yeah.
So there's 3 biomes. There's the lush, which is very jungly, arid, which is obviously very desert, rocky. That's, you know, imagine Dune. Dune comes up a lot, as you can tell. And
Big Frank Herbert fans. Right
yeah,
there.
and then the fungal biome, where it's as if the entire ecosystem is fungal. So yeah, hills made out of fungus and tree-sized mushrooms and other disgusting things.
Have you guys considered doing a Jodorowsky's Dune biome?
Oh my God! If we took acid real early, and you know,
In
just
development?
pumped our concept arts full of drugs, psychedelic drugs, and
I
maybe
should-
that's what we would have ended up with.
I should rush and copyright that idea before that's the next expansion.
Yeah, Jodorowsky's Civ expansion.
There you go. That's
Bang. Done.
sell millions.
Yeah, try to get your internal. Was there there's a station option in there? Consider that one.
It's just this.
Paloran says, are there still warmongering penalties?
Oh yeah, that
Yes.
one. Yeah. So, well, I'm sure they mean diplomatic, and yes, there are. The AI for diplomacy has been heavily rewritten, obviously, with all the sort of landscape changes that they have to look after. But so the AI will definitely pay attention if you declare lots of war and you're causing conflict, and they'll dislike that. But they will judge. They would be sensitive in slightly different ways than historic Civ was.
Is to implement them in code.
Okay. Now build guns, missile rubber.
Not this guy.
Oh, not this guy.
This
Right. The other one.
needs to grow. This guy. Time for guns. Missile rover. Boom.
So which victory state are you targeting right now?
I haven't really been thinking about it.
It's not at the point in the game where I would really be thinking about a victory condition.
Okay.
We've talked a little bit about like the pivot that happens in this game. Like there's sort of these acts in the game. The first act is getting established and pushing back the darkness and establishing yourself on this alien world. The second act is what we're playing out right now, which is how I interact with the other civs, how I'm dealing with the aliens. And then the third act is that victory run, and we haven't really gotten there yet. But
Right.
I'm trending in a supremacy direction, so that may be an option later.
Yeah, you might be well positioned for that. I wouldn't say domination is a good choice. Contact could be a good choice, depending on what other people do. Especially if you conquer a few cities, then...
Jaboomba, I'm coming for you.
Venga, volvámonos más ricos.
Oh, another favor.
A term for not much energy.
Lo sentimos.
Oh, he's refreshing the deal. You have to
Oh, okay.
make what will make this deal work.
There's a dude whose name is really, really close to my name. There's a guy named Nick Robson, which is about one syllable off from mine, but he says, I heard that Sid's approach to the Civ series is 33% new, 33% improvements, and 33% retained. How does Beyond Earth jive with that breakdown?
That's it's interesting. We were actually speaking along these lines earlier today. That's a rule. Well, first of all, it's not necessarily fair to call it a rule. It's more of like a philosophy about how to approach an iteration on the Civ series, and it's something that like Civ designers have sort of started with as sort of like their concept entry point. Like how do we imagine what would make the Civ game, good, continue to be good, keep it alive and fresh and valuable. And so when we started this game, we started from that perspective, but sort of quickly realized that we couldn't maintain those percentages exactly that way because we weren't carrying over very much beyond sort of like the pure mechanical bones of a Civ game. Like the history context is gone, and many of the other sort of assumptions of a Civ game are gone. So we actually sort of stopped thinking in those terms pretty quickly and started just focusing on trying to represent what makes Civ fundamentally strong, while like presenting it all with the futuristic sci-fi, I guess you could say, dressing or pieces.
Gotcha.
So I thought about it a little bit. I wonder, I think I might say something like, our game is a lot more of the second two categories. Like very, very little has been carried over exactly as it was in the previous Civ. There's almost no system, no part of the game that hasn't been changed to fit this new balance and this new combination of ideas we're shooting for. And then we obviously spent an awful lot of time putting whole new things in it, like the way the tech web has changed, the way the virtues are changed, but then things like covert ops, the orbital layer, the quests, the aliens. So this game is it's kind of like Civ is its common ancestor. It has the same genetic formation of a Civ game and belongs to the Civ canon, but is fundamentally a different experience.
Fighting over my land.
All your farmers ducked, hopefully.
Yes!
Oh my god.
So now might be a good time to go after...
Now it's time to kill that guy. All right.
Time to declare war?
Well, in 10 turns we'll be at war.
Okay, so you have to wait for the 10 turns thing, but that's a
I
perfect
don't
time.
have to. I mean, I could preemptively strike here. But
Right.
I can build one more rover, probably.
Cool. Have you guys talked about just how long this game has been in development from inception to release?
We unfortunately, like as much as we would really like to be candid about that kind of thing, being a publicly traded company and all that kind of imposes some restrictions. In that area. So we really can't say, we can't talk about team size or development time frame.
I gotcha.
Basically.
Wow, I landed on the two.
Those are the two we can't.
Awesome.
Yeah, we can't.
That's
say.
all right.
No, it's fine.
When the statute of limitations runs out, boy, we'll have stories for you.
Cool.
Like, 50 years from now or whenever.
For sure, you guys can write a book.
Yeah, we'll write.
Right.
So this is a pretty superficial thing, but it's something I always have to ask about with these strategy games. I would love to see the furthest you can zoom in and zoom out. Like, I love getting a closer look at the building design and the unit design.
Yeah, actually,
Master
that's cool too.
there.
The
Is
Wonder.
that the Wonder over there?
Yeah.
It's Wonder. I love the flow stuff.
Whoa.
Paddocks.
Cool.
Is that a resource? What is that?
These are all resources. So this is chitin, reslin, That's coral. That's, I think, that's just a
Just a
mine,
mine.
regular mine.
And yeah, the units are really cool.
And you can see the station with its like hab pod and stuff.
Yeah.
Looks very future Epcot.
Firaxite.
Yeah, you
Look
see
at
the
this.
siege worm.
Wait,
It's like rolling around in there.
there's an element called Firaxite?
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
one of the.
It's one of these things where like we named it that really early on, and we're like, surely someone will
Right.
change this, and then
I have to imagine
Didn't
that's
get
what
changed.
happened in Avatar with the unobtainium line.
Right,
I was
right.
like, that must have been a placeholder that stayed in.
zoomed out. I mean, you can get pretty far zoomed out.
Yeah.
Actually, interestingly, as strategy game players or Civ players specifically, we're used to late game, zoom out all the way. The game chugs a little bit.
Mhm.
So we're kind of used to that. And with Mantle, AMD Mantle, it doesn't.
Oh, interesting.
Which is just the most bizarre. And you wouldn't think that'd be weird, but it is.
It feels different.
It just feels weird because like you zoom way out and you're like, wait a minute, something feels different. It's
Right.
Because the 60 frames a second is maintained no matter what.
Jeez.
So if you have like Mantle enabled cards, this
You
game
will
is
enjoy it.
for you. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. All right, what do you think?
You're just gonna park on the edge and wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, get your other units in range.
I could probably buy another Marine or something.
Yeah, you definitely can. Oh, let's get this started.
Do it.
Now,
Excellent.
so I would, if you're gonna buy one, I'd do it now.
Can you guys speak at all to if have there been any changes in the netcode since Civ 5?
The net code.
Yeah.
The multiplayer like networking
Yes.
layer?
People are sort of asking like, I would love to have a
One of
game
the
that goes
final-
beyond 100 turns that still works.
Like doesn't desync?
Yes,
Oh,
exactly.
Yeah. That's what we mean by bug fixes. Like,
Okay, cool.
So like the modes of multiplayer are like hot seat, local area network, standard network.
Mhm.
That's what we mean by modes. But like extensive work has been done to stabilize, improve, and smooth out the whole thing. So yes, you should find it much more usable. Dude, you need to like start eating up your affinity.
I think you
You're
guys
gonna need to
just-
upgrade your siege units. I would go for
Get yeah.
I get AI. Yeah.
You just made a lot of people on Twitch really happy with the,
Oh, with the-
netcode stuff. Yeah.
Well, actually, it wasn't us. It was Bradley.
Yeah.
Sure.
Our
Bradley,
multiplayer engineer.
our multiplayer guy, our multiplayer engineer did a really good job
Right.
fixing all that stuff. All right, what do you think? Missile rover, another marine.
You need siege units, more than two probably.
I just built one, and I'm building another, and I can purchase.
I would purchase something more
Got
meat
two.
shieldy, like another marine.
Okay, let's do that.
Because they're cheap. Because it's cheaper than it's gonna die, and it's cheaper than a missile rover.
Yeah. All right.
Anox on YouTube is saying, how big/versatile will Covert Ops be in this game? Will it be Civ 5 level or Alpha Centauri level where you can do so many things?
I would say it's pretty sophisticated, and I'll show you. I've actually been quietly siphoning energy from these two cities for a
Whoa.
while, and in 3 turns I'll have done it again. So I've placed spies in Freeland and Jabumba,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't show you the other ops right now because I'm currently doing one, but.
Right.
They have the operations are pretty extensive. In Civ 5, basically all you could do was steal research and technology.
Mm-hmm.
And in this, you can steal all the different kinds of yields. You can, actually, some of the yields, and you can actually flip cities with Covert Ops. You can stage a coup and flip
Whoa.
a city. So there's like
Or
sort of
blow
a culture bomb kind of mechanic there too, but only if you jack up the intrigue of that particular city enough that'll let you do that. So there's some gating and telegraphing that we put in to make sure that it never happens to you by surprise.
Right, that's...
But it definitely is a more sophisticated and a deeper system than it previously was. I think you'll like it.
Let's go up here. Because you're about to move that guy out of the way.
I think it kind of speaks to what you guys were saying about wanting this to be sort of harder science fiction and more akin to where humanity might actually go. I think that energy being such an important resource feels very much in line with speculative fiction about like
Yeah, I mean,
how
I
human
think when
beings
we
will
made
work.
that call, we had just read The Wind-Up Girl,
Okay.
where in The Wind-Up Girl, currency is all in calories. So like it's this sort of quasi-dystopian future where energy is so important, there are no more fossil fuels, energy is so important that the currency that people trade is literally the sweat on your brow, like calories. So I always thought that was kind of cool and really speaks to a possible future and was very evocative, so we decided to roll with that. you think, Dave?
So
That's a sea worm.
It's a good question. Yeah. I would actually draw back that rover right there, because he's half dead and the siege worm is there. You need to get your like sort of frontline shock troops in there before, because you only have so many missile rovers.
This is awesome right here.
Yeah, this is a very interesting situation, because the siege worm is actually making it harder to conquer the city.
Right.
Because you don't know whether the siege worm is going to fight the city or fight you, because it's clearly upset.
You can hear it in its wails a little bit.
Yeah, it's been like acing all the stuff. The Jimboom has been shooting at it. It's probably not. So you don't want to be sort of like caught in a crossfire, so to speak, between the siege worm and that city.
Oh, this is interesting. So
Brazilia's
Brasilia knows that that this is a pretty critical piece of infrastructure for our common enemy here. So they're attacking this to try to eliminate it.
There's bug with that.
Yeah, I think that's a bug. Let's see.
Ben BB on Twitch is asking, what games do you guys like to play outside of the sort of Firaxis?
Oh, here we go.
Oh my god.
Oh,
Smashing
no.
it. It was so.
I don't know.
I don't think so.
Whose
I think
was
it
that?
Mine. I think it's somebody else's.
I
Okay.
think it was somebody else's.
It's okay, we can do that. I get out of my ass here.
So yeah, so now that worm is sort of blocking your army from getting in there, which is kind of good. You might actually buy you time to get your other rovers up there.
I think I should follow this guy back.
Yes.
Yep. Think about following this guy back.
I'd
too.
fortify him right there. There's a decent chance that the worm won't attack it because you haven't been attacking them.
That's true.
Oh, interesting. So the aliens sort of have a sense of aggro
Yes.
under
absolutely.
themselves.
Yeah, both both for individual units, for individual players, and for humans in general. So they've got multiple levels of sort of awareness for their ire, and it'll also be different based on the alien type. So different alien units are more or less intelligent about who they aggro over. So this worm is aggroed, clearly. Like, it's just destroyed that siege unit. It's been taking lots of rocket fire from Jabuba and aircraft attacks. So it's riled up. It's more likely to be aggressive. But it doesn't view our people from our particular civ as a threat necessarily, because we haven't directly been attacking it. However, it could attack anyway because it views all humans as...
Oh, it killed it.
Oh, wow, got it. Try to take out your siege rover. It didn't work so well. So now you got to get all your guys back.
Attack jet.
Yeah, they're playing. So slide that guy over so you can get your...
You don't have to answer this if it will give away any Easter eggs, but
Just like
someone in the chat was asking if there's any overlap between this and the XCOM universe.
Oh, that's funny. No, actually, we wanted to make sure that the universes remain separate because, well, for a bunch of reasons. One is that it would be difficult to sort of like describe the timeline, you know, like fit it into some sort of canon. But also, the more important one was we want to make sure that both universes are free to experiment and to change as their needs dictate, so that they don't have to respect the events of a different game that may or may not be relevant. So we have some homages to XCOM. There's some achievement names and things like that.
Okay.
But otherwise, they are their own things.
Cool.
It's a little bit too close in terms of like the subject matter. Like it's cool to see the XCOM troopers in Civ, like late game Civ, and actually some of our fans got kind of riled up about that.
Really?
You know, I thought it was cool, but I can understand why.
Sure.
You're a purist, right?
Right.
But yeah, we decided to keep it pure. All right. Let's see.
Yeah, you want to hit the city with the Marines. Yeah, that's gonna. Now then hit it with your siege rover. Well, actually, we should have done it the other way around, but that's okay. That's okay.
The Unusual Shadow is
Shoot with that guy.
he's asking about the endgame aliens that may have been mentioned in the past.
I mentioned that the alien behavior changes by the end of the game.
Right, but they're not separate.
Yeah,
like,
the units
races or
aren't
anything.
going to be. All the units you see now, you will continue to see, but you'll see them in different percentages and acting in different ways by the end of the game.
Umbral Reaver asks if you will build a TACnet hub because it's cheap and they want to see it in action.
Oh, the Orbital unit? Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, yeah. All right. Let's see.
You should get that guy in
Yeah, kind of
into the fray.
order here.
Try like swapping him out with the closer marine. Oh, we can't because
We
they're
can't.
used.
Okay.
Just gotta wait.
Yeah, I'm kind of bottled up. I've got this like.
Yeah, you gotta move around the side. See if they take out the siege or take out your marines.
Who's it gonna be?
Yeah, the weaker unit.
Gains from veterans team. That's good. I
Keep them alive.
can level
yeah.
my guy up here.
D&D Striker says, what sort of steps are needed for a contact victory? Is it one of those things that you should only try if you find the signal in early ruins?
No, actually, you can try it at any point. So you find the signal. It actually requires two parts, and there's 3 ways to get a part. Finding one in a progenitor ruin expedition is one way, but there are 2 guaranteed ways. One is to put a deep space telescope up, which will find it after a certain number of turns for sure. And then the transcendental equation, which is a project you can build related to it comes from a technology that you can research, will also absolutely always find one. So you can make sure that you find the signal at whatever rate you want. If you find it in the ruins, you get lucky. Once you've discovered the signal, you have to decode it, which is a city project. It can take a while. And then that provides the blueprints for the beacon, which is a planetary wonder. And we've described this before, but it's a building that the city builds, but is large enough that it requires one of the city's plots. And it is a city-sized structure. It's huge. It's visible out on the map.
Visible from space, essentially.
Yeah, oh yeah. And like, once you build the beacon, you have to activate it, which costs a huge amount of energy. And then while the beacon is running, it will consume all of your surplus energy. So your energy income will go to 0 while the beacon is on, regardless of how much you would have been making. So drop it over your dudes.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's let them take a look at this. And as tempting as it is to just play infinite turns of Beyond Earth here, I think we do have to wrap up eventually. So I'll give people like a couple minutes to maybe throw out any final questions if they have any.
You want to switch back real fast?
Sure.
Save us, Dave.
Well, we're not suffering whether or not our invasion succeeds.
So this here is a question that is pretty precise about Civ multiplayer. So even if I don't understand every word in it, I'm going to say it.
All right.
The Unusual Shadow is asking, how does multiplayer war work? In simultaneous mode, how does it work? Or is it more of a click war style that you saw in Civ 5?
I see. So this is an improvement we've made that I think is really cool. So in simultaneous mode, players take their turns at the same time, concurrently, until players get into war. And then when they get into war, they take turns sequentially. Just the players that are in war. Everybody else, like you basically, the players at peace get to take their turn, and then the players at war take their turn, but in sequence. And that order is determined by your score. So in multiplayer, we show you who's ahead all the time. We have a score for every player, and that's what determines your order. And that score calculation is actually one of the more complex calculations we do. There's a lot that contributes to your score, and we've done a lot to make sure that that kind of feels right and it's balanced. But that's basically how it works. It'll speed up the game under normal non-military circumstances, and then the players engaged in a military conflict will play out that conflict sequentially.
Huh. You guys have, it feels like, from the outside looking in, it feels like you guys have thought about pretty much everything. Like every conceivable question that people have.
I don't know, like this game is going to go wild, and at some point, within the first week, we're going to just look on YouTube and find like, okay, well, there's a critical path we need to fix, or there's an exploit they found, or like we have a lot of respect for our audience. Our fans are very smart. They are a lot smarter than we are in many cases, and they will find the exploits and things. And that's why, like, to us, a game like this is always a living product.
Yeah.
We're always watching how people play. We're making adjustments. We're releasing balance patches. So we do watch and we learn. We're trying to. We don't have all the answers, but we know that our community can help us.
That's awesome, and it certainly feels like you guys have a ton of respect for your audience. I think a game like this necessitates that relationship.
Yeah, I mean, it's the franchise is so venerable. It's generational, right?
Yeah.
You know, parents teaching their kids about civilization. That's something we really respect, and that's kind of rare, at least at this point in our. We haven't, you know, games have not been around quite long enough for that to be prevalent.
Right.
And we just really respect that, and we want to make sure that we do right by those fans.
That's very cool. Well, is there one final action, one final turn that we should take in Beyond Earth to kind of close us out? What's the most interesting thing that you could force in the next turn or two?
Not much, unfortunately. I'm trying to get these siege units into position, but in one turn or two, I'm not getting them.
Gotcha.
But, so really, we could just like step back and appreciate the scope of the planet as it exists. So
You haven't even seen these guys yet.
Yeah, in the darkness, they're off doing their thing. I don't know where you even know where Fran. There they are. So you could see like this is turn 128, so this is still solidly within the first 30%, 35% of the game.
And just the way that the gameplay changed over the course of this stream, from exploring the darkness to this sort of geopolitical.
We're having this
conflict.
we're fighting over the future of Jabumba. Brasilia came in from across this little lake to take out their rivals across the way. We've got these two cities growing up fast, size 8, size 5, and
they were a result of sort of a mistake, right? We probably shouldn't have expanded that fast, but we recovered from that. We're still suffering in health.
But yeah, like now we're sort of more concerned with like empire building. Like our civs, the parts of the planet that we own is more or less taken care of. Like there's room for a few more expansions. There's a major war going on. The aliens are starting to become more of a factor in this geopolitical squabbling rather than sort of a threat in their own right.
Right.
Like that siege worm sort of getting in the way of our war.
Exactly.
Sort of thing. And also an impediment to expansion. Like this miasma dense, resource rich area over here with its station is looking like a pretty sweet spot for a new city. So even though we've been trading with the temple for a while, we might find that we need to shove them off and claim this. But that also probably means actually kicking it into gear against the aliens and shooting them a lot.
And you know, Polystralia is probably not going to be very happy about that either, because they've been trading with them. So,
assuming that they survive this war.
Right, assuming they survive the war.
They've got these two civs, which are probably in some significantly more powerful than they are. But we have an army on the ground. They have an army coming down. I don't see Brazilians anywhere, so who knows what's going to happen.
They're letting us do the fighting for them.
Meanwhile, like Mandira at least has like all the way up to here. Who knows?
Right, we can see just the edge of their landmass
there.
there.
Threat ready to come sweeping across the ocean.
Yeah. Well, I hate to tear you away from it. I may, when you guys leave, finish off this game for you and then tell you what happens. But yeah, thank you. And thank you guys so much for coming in, both of you. Thanks, Will and David.
Absolutely, our pleasure.
It seems like this was a really great experience for both of our audiences to like kind of finally just get to throw these hyper-specific questions at you guys.
Yeah.
Do you guys have like I guess there's obviously a release date and price out there already?
October 24th. It's an international release, so everybody will have it on the same day. And that's the PC version. The Mac and Linux versions are coming shortly after, but we haven't announced the dates for those. But yeah, and if I think you pre-order now, and you'll get the map pack, which are based on actual exoplanets. Very cool.
Whoa.
Well, they're named after.
They're named after them.
We don't actually know that much about.
They're based on as much as we know.
Modern science is not caught up with Firaxis game development quite yet, so we don't really have the data to support that.
Exactly.
Well, awesome. And if people are watching on Twitch and they maybe missed the beginning of the stream, the whole archive of this stream will be available on youtube.com/rev3games. You can watch the whole thing from start to finish. And thank you guys so much again for coming, and thank you at home for watching. This has been a blast, and looking forward to seeing the final game when it comes out. Thanks.
Yeah. Awesome. Our pleasure.
Bye, guys.
Benvenuto a Venezia. Sol doge Enrico Dando.
As the industry prepares to enter an era of new platforms, new technologies, and maybe a little uncertainty, it feels strangely comforting to get a new Civilization title. Brave New World, the second expansion to Civilization V, is out this week for PC and Mac, bringing with it a bunch of new features and mechanics that significantly augment the core game. Like last year's Gods and Kings, Brave New World does not aim to make the game more accessible or overhaul the familiar empire-building formula. Instead, it preaches to the converted and breathes new life into a game that already claimed more sleepless nights than I would care to admit. At the most reductive level, Brave New World sets its sights on the second half of the game, while Gods and Kings focused on the first half. Of course, there are the new civs, units, scenarios, and buildings you'd expect from an expansion pack, but the most significant features appear in the later eras of the game in the form of the overhauled cultural and diplomatic systems.
Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it.
If you ever try to reach a cultural victory in Civ 5, then you're probably already familiar with its tedium. Filling up social policy after social policy didn't just put large sections of the game on autopilot, but it felt completely detached from the role culture actually plays in our world. Now that path to victory has been redone and is centered on a new yield called tourism. To win, you'll need to make sure your tourism exceeds the culture of every other Civ, making yours the most influential civilization in the world. There are a couple of minigames that support this. New guilds produce great artists, musicians, and writers, who can then be consumed to generate their own real-life great works. These great works can be stored in buildings and wonders to start generating tourism, but to maximize their output, they must be curated to match that wonder's guidelines. For instance, the Oxford University requires works from different eras and civilizations other than my own, so I ended up swapping my Brazilian Canterbury Tales for India's War and Peace. There's also a new archaeology minigame. Ancient battles that took place in the early eras of your game will produce dig sites, which you can use to collect tourism-boosting artifacts. The system carries with it a difficulty curve that can be a bit frustrating at first, as learning those new key wonders and diplomatic modifiers are really important to winning at higher difficulty levels. In addition, works of art seem to be much more important than those of music or writing, but it's still a great step forward, making culture much less insular and consistently more engaging. As my humble Brazilian civilization fostered the creation of the Great Gatsby and adoration of the Magi amidst years of strife and war, it really added a sense of majesty to my fictional world. And like so many parts of Civilization V, the remarkable presentation elevates these moments to heights that exceed their core gameplay function. Along with culture's sweeping overhaul comes myriad smaller changes, not the least of which are the redone social policy trees in the brand new ideology system. Once you reach the modern era, you will choose your civilization's ideology from freedom, autocracy, or order, each of which carry their own set of tenets, providing boosts similar to the social policy perks. But they also play a more grand role, establishing some diplomatic frameworks and alliances as the game heads towards 2050. This is most visible in the brand new World Congress, a global organization that gets established even before ideologies are chosen. This body grows over time, eventually turning into the United Nations, but throughout the game it acts as a regular global touchpoint, allowing for resolutions to be proposed and voted on every 30 turns. These resolutions can provide funding to culture or science, embargo specific resources, or if a civ has been bullying the world, you can even enact a tax for their army. But similar to the religion system, how useful you find the Congress depends entirely on how much effort you put into it and what victory condition you're pursuing. It was also easy to see inequalities develop in the early days of Congress that remained throughout the game, resulting in one or two leaders who held on to the majority of the votes throughout. If you want to get the most out of it, you'll need to carefully manage several other diplomatic factors that can subtly affect relationships, like placing diplomats instead of spies in other capitals, maintaining trade routes, or keeping declarations of friendship active. But even if you choose to largely ignore the system, one vote can have severe repercussions, as I saw when I backed Venice's proposal to make freedom the world's preferred ideology. I made a couple of friends, but as I learned, it only takes one enemy with a large army to make things turn ugly.
Bom, sendo assim, não temos mais o que falar.
Gods and Kings included some significant AI changes, and the World Congress and the UN made me interact with that AI much more frequently than I was used to. This made the game feel like it was truly taking place on a global stage, instead of just on the continents that I occupied. This is also the case with the new trade route system, which can send gold, science, and even religion between civilizations or your own cities. These end up being crucial to your civ's financial health, and can even help your culture spread across the globe. And then, of course, there are the new civilizations. 9 new civs and leaders come with Brave New World, each carrying unique units and abilities. Morocco is a trade-friendly civ that flourishes in the desert. Brazil's Carnaval makes it a culture and tourism powerhouse. And the Indonesians can find precious resources across multiple continents.
Lirdahat apanggung kunang.
But I found Venice to be the most interesting. They cannot build settlers and found new cities, but they can purchase city-states. This shakes one of the core principles of the game, and in doing so it opens up some fun new strategies. In my game, they were a financial force, accumulating a huge treasury through their extra trade routes, and with some carefully puppeted city-states and smart diplomacy, I was able to lead the United Nations to elect me as the world leader.
You've triumphed over your foes through the art of diplomacy.
But regardless of your preferred playstyle, you're likely to find some fun new toys to play with in the new set of 9, and of course, each bring with them their own personality, art style, and brilliant score. After playing Brave New World for a couple weeks, it seems impossible to go back to Gods and Kings. The new systems add fresh gameplay mechanics that add some much needed depth to the final third of the game, but what might be most surprising is how well everything fits together. With all the features that have been added since the base game released 3 years ago, it would have been easy to end up with a game that felt disjointed and unfocused, like a second or third story addition to a house that was never meant to be. But instead the game feels cohesive and whole.
I lift my lamp beside the golden door.
Undoubtedly, there will be some tweaking and balancing needs that reveal themselves over time, and there's a definite learning curve to the new features, although there are a ton of new advisor suggestions and tooltips to help you along the way.
Verbing.
If Brave New World is the last chapter in the Civilization V story, it is a fitting conclusion. The Civ 5 of 2013 has come a long way from that game of 2010, and despite some minor issues, it truly lives up to its namesake. What happens next in the franchise remains to be seen, but for now, Firaxis has built a game that looks to stand the test of time. I've collected my delegates' votes and decreed Civ 5 Brave New World to be a 5 out of 5. So that is what I thought of Brave New World. It is out July 9th in North America and July 12th overseas. And it's also worth noting that it includes the espionage and religion systems that were in Gods and Kings. So if you skipped last year's expansion, you're only missing out on those 9 civs and scenarios that came with it. Now there's a ton of content in the game that I was unable to touch on in my review, so if you have any additional questions, and I'm sure you will, leave them in the comments and I will try to get to them. In addition, I was unable to play with the multiplayer in my time with the game, so if that is your primary way of playing, I suggest that you wait until the game is out and check out some reports from the community. That's it for me. I am Zach Miner, and I will see you next time. So it's been just 9 months since Civilization V Gods and Kings came out, and already we are on the cusp of a brand new expansion pack. Brave New World was announced about a month ago, and last week I got a chance to check it out for myself, as well as chat with the lead designer Ed Beach. Perhaps the most significant change in Brave New World is the new cultural victory scenario. Gone is the grind to build as many cultural producing buildings and wonders as possible. Instead, there's an entirely new resource for you to worry about, called tourism.
Tourism represents sort of how attractive your culture is to the rest of the world. So you can build up your culture, which will spread your culture borders and will let you have social policies, and that's sort of building up your own internal culture to your people. But tourism is what makes your culture shine to the rest of the world. So you create that through great works created through great writers, great musicians, and great artists. You can also create great works through our archaeology system by extracting artifacts of ancient battles. And all those things get packed into your cultural buildings like your museums and your opera houses. And those are amazing magnets for people from around the world to want to come and visit them, especially if you have some of those strongest ones of those, like the Louvre, the Uffizi Museum that we've added, that's representing the Great Art Museum from Florence, the Globe Theater, Broadway, those kind of things. Right. And all those can be set up with just the right combination of great works in there, so you get a great bonus from them. And if you do that, then all of a sudden you're generating a lot of tourism per turn. And that tourism is sort of your offensive spread of your cultural system to the rest of the world, and it's going to affect other people especially those who have had a weak cultural presence in the game. A lot of people who have tested it have likened it to the military victory, where you might be playing for it from the beginning of the game, but based on what the other civilizations in the world are doing, it may just not be, that path may not actually be open for you or not.
Right.
The diplomatic victory and the space victory, those, you know, they're always there waiting for you at the end of the tech tree. But the cultural and the military victories are very dependent on how the other civs in the game are playing, and which ones are in. You know, if you have, it's always been true that if Genghis and Attila were around, it's going to be tough to win a military victory in that game. And they're big culture players in Brave New World, and you're going to see them in the games, and maybe you'll be able to take them on culture, and that will be your greatest cultural victory ever. But, you know, it may be hard to take on France or Brazil, who's one of the new civilizations that's very good at culture.
The result is something that, at least in my short time with the game, felt much more dynamic than the old system. The new archaeology system is especially cool. The game actually remembers old skirmishes or fallen cities from the early stage and designates those as historical sites. You can then use archaeologists to build landmarks around them or take artifacts and place them in a museum. And you can even take artifacts from sites on city-state lands or even another civilization if you have an open border deal. Another big addition is the new trade route system, which is available from pretty much the start of the game.
It's going to affect strategies on how you build up your own empire, how you interact with the other empires in the game, how you build up your economic, monetary strength, whether you emphasize that over things like spreading religion or getting science. And so there's so many different facets to that we found that's a really deep system that you're going to have to engage with to figure out how not only early your own empire is going to develop, but how you're going to use those trade routes late in the game to help get you to victory.
The trade routes are not managed exclusively in menus either. Each trade route has either a caravan or a ship assigned to it, so while a distant colony might make for a more lucrative trade route, it does increase the chances of ambush. You can also set up trade routes within your own cities, sending them food or production, which can help get a new city off the ground, or can assist in the production of a big project or wonder. Of course, it would not be a new civilization expansion pack without several new leaders to choose from. They've got 9 that's going to be included with Brave New World, and they've already announced Assyria, Brazil, and Poland, and Ed was able to share 2 more from the list of unannounced civilizations.
The fan favorite, the Zulu, are back. Yet another military civ, very different path than Assyria, as they swarm you with numbers, especially in the pre-gunpowder era. And the last one they're announcing this week is Portugal. And Portugal is your dominant naval trade civ, array of bonuses on that side of the game, and they're going to be able to build up a naval trading empire that's unrivaled by anyone else in the game.
Another big new system is the ideology system. As civilizations enter the industrial age, we'll have to decide from 3 different ideologies, which will of course have diplomatic implications, but they also carry a set of tenets which are kind of similar to the boost that you got from religion in Gods and Kings.
One thing that we haven't talked about today that is an important new element of the new systems are the 20th century clash between the major ideologies of the world. So we have communism fighting fascism, fighting the democratic societies, and that's something that becomes the key struggle, sort of the pivotal conflict late in the game. Every nation in the world has to pick one of those ideologies, take one of the sides in that 3-sided conflict, and that's who your diplomatic partners are going to be late in the game. I looked at what was trying to be done when sort of the early idealistic visions of communism and even fascism were created. And they were trying to create strong central societies that would chart an amazing vision of the future. Maybe not a vision that, you know, represents the individual freedoms that we're used to, but they thought they had a great vision of the world. And that's exactly what happens in Brave New World, the book, as well. Because if you look at that, that's a big state-controlled society. Everyone is kept happy by certain happiness-inducing drugs that they're taking. Very interesting setup. But they thought they had the vision for the Brave New World, just like all of the 3 ideologies that are in the game. And if you look at when Huxley wrote that book, he wrote it in like the 20s and 30s. It's the same period when fascism and communism were considered actual alternatives to how the world might want to, you know, roll out its future and how the 20th century could have unfolded. And so I feel like that's one of the ways you can role play this game. You can actually try to establish a culture of victory as a communist player and spread the dictatorship of the proletariat across the world and establish the great worker society that maybe Marx or Lenin thought was possible at the time. And so that seems to be very Brave New World-ish. You're picking your Brave New World. It might be a strong government. It might be the individual freedoms we're used to. Right. And then you're trying to roll to victory in Civ 5 and set that up for yourself.
Obviously, there's a ton of stuff that we didn't get to talk about. For instance, there's a new World Congress system which refines the diplomatic endgame and adds several interesting wrinkles. And even the religion from gods and kings has been expanded on in this game to make it a little more relevant past the early and mid stages of the game. And the good news is that Brave New World includes the religion and espionage systems from Gods and Kings. So the only thing you're missing if you skipped out on that expansion pack are the 9 civilizations and those scenarios. So obviously we only got to play a very small chunk of the game, but based on what I've seen so far, I could not be more excited for Brave New World. It's coming to PC in July with a Mac date shortly thereafter, and I have a feeling that we're going to be learning a lot more about the game as we get closer to that release date. So be sure you stay right here on Rev3 Games.
Lir tuhu wali tokito. Lir dahat apangong kunang.
So this week we finally got our first chance to go hands-on with the upcoming Civilization V expansion pack, Brave New World. I could go on for hours about the side effects of the nitty-gritty changes, but I thought I would distill my thoughts into 5 major takeaways. So here we go, in no particular order. Number 1, new civs means lots of new toys. Brave New World has 9 new civilizations, and we got to see 2 unannounced ones in this preview build. I got to play as Morocco, a trade-friendly civilization that flourishes in desert tiles and can pretty easily dominate the money game. Also in my game were previously announced new civs like Poland, Brazil, the Assyrians, and the Zulus, but we also met Majagata of Indonesia. Indonesia's first 2 cities built on continents, other than their capital, get a bonus in the form of 2 unique luxury resources, and those cities can never be razed. They also get a replacement for the swordsman unit, which carries a curvy Chris sword, rumored to have some sort of mystical power.
Deveremos prosperar através do comércio?
In my game, Brazil was a formidable foe in the culture game, Shaka was super aggressive, unsurprisingly, and Poland kept getting bullied by the rest of the world. Sorry, Kazmir.
Jak ci się podoba moja oferta?
I could only play as Morocco, but they suited my playstyle pretty well. I was going for a relatively pacifist playthrough, and while they don't get much of a bonus for the new cultural game, their financial bonus means that you can more easily buddy up with the neighboring city-states. Okay, on to number 2, re-establishing my cultural identity. As you've probably heard by now, Brave New World has an entirely new cultural victory scenario. Gone is the rush to fill up your policy trees, and instead your goal is to become the dominant culture across the world. To do this, you'll need to maximize your tourism output, which is done through 2 big new systems, Great Works and Archaeology. I'll talk about Archaeology in a second, but the Great Works system is really cool, and about 100 times more interesting than just building culture-producing buildings and wonders over and over. Now you can produce great artists, musicians, and writers, who then produce great works which get stored in wonders and buildings.
Evoked by clouds and rain.
Who knew Morocco was really home to Shakespeare, Van Gogh, and George Gershwin? On top of that, you also need to curate your great works. Specific wonders have different curation requirements, and you'll probably need to trade great works with other civs in order to meet those requirements. Once you do, though, you'll get a nice boost to your tourism. On to number 3. It belongs in a museum. Now when you research archaeology, certain antiquity sites pop up on the map containing relics and trinkets from ancient battles from the early part of the game. Aside from just being a cool concept for a game that takes place over several thousand years, archaeology gives you a few more things to do in the mid-game. Once you've built archaeologists, you can either extract tourism-generating artifacts from those sites, or you can build them into culture-producing landmarks, which seem like a defensive move if another civ is going for that cultural victory. For my time with it, I didn't find it quite as cool as the Great Works system, since all the artifacts I found were these generic beads or arrowheads that don't usually fit into the curated wonders. But it's still another fun mechanic to play with on your quest for cultural victory. On to number 4, the World Congress giveth, and the World Congress taketh away. The diplomacy game has been retooled, and with it you now have the World Congress, which is typically established around the Renaissance era. This is basically an early form of a United Nations, but it does a great job of providing consistent diplomatic touchpoints from the middle of the game on through to the end. Once city-states get a vote in the Congress, I was able to shape a ton of resolutions to my will, thanks to my big treasury. I passed resolutions that provided a bonus to culture and a penalty to science, as well as the World's Fair and international games, which require combined production and give out some pretty significant perks. As the Congress went on, I became a little greedy, and after it turned to the United Nations, my city-state alliance started to become less powerful. In my hubris, I tried to get everyone to vote in freedom as the world's ideology, and I didn't make a whole lot of friends in the process. Please don't hurt me, Shaka. Now, on to number 5, the number where I try to cram in everything else that's in the game. This is probably the point where you're going to want to freeze frame and enhance on those tooltips. There's new social policy trees, and some of the existing trees have been redone. There's new buildings and new wonders. There's trade routes. There's even expansions to the religion and espionage systems from Gods and Kings, as well as the new ideology system, which provides a bunch of new bonuses to supplement your victory condition and helps shape the diplomatic endgame. So as I said, I only got about 10 hours with the preview build, but so far I'm really impressed and I cannot wait to see more. There's a bunch of stuff I didn't get to talk about, so if you guys have any questions, leave them in the chat below, and hopefully we'll find out those 2 remaining civs before the game launches in North America on July 9th and overseas on July 12th.
Happy to be joined by Steve Martin. He is the studio head here at Firaxis, and he's going to show us all around, see what the environment is like, where Civilization and XCOM get made. So take it away, Steve.
You got it. This is my favorite part of showing people around our studio. Is one of my favorite things to do. So we're going to wander down here. Okay. All right, this is our main corridor into the production area, out of the lobby, into the inner sanctum where everything happens. You have our press wall. We always like to show that off. That's the first thing, important for everybody to see.
And you can see many, many old magazines that are no longer in production, which really is a testament to how long you guys have been around.
That's right, 17 years. If we wander down this way, you'll see kind of the initial layout of what we did to figure out how our space was going to be organized, to help support collaboration, community, kind of working together, having some privacy, but some community as well. So like, we got these big cool doors, right? And this group can close this door and they're private. They can open this door and now they're part of the world. We have this set up with 2, 3, 4 different types of offices.
I assume that they all work on the same project. Are they part of the same set of that project?
Typically. So like this whole group would be working on a project together, but it could also be broken out into smaller groups. So you'll see throughout the space that we have a lot of areas that don't look like they belong together, and that's so we can cut it up. So that group can become its team, or they can join the bigger team. But all of that was part of how we tried to figure out space planning when we went to a single-story building. We used to be in a multi-story building. And
so now we have that much distance between team members,
Horrible. And everybody had an individual office too. And it seemed normal. It seemed like that's the way it was supposed to be. And then when we went to the single floor, we just saw how much better it was for everybody to see each other, meet each other, cross areas. You know, you have multiple projects going on here. And so this way, you get to see and meet the other people and what they're doing.
Was Civilization 5 the first game to come out of this new space?
Yeah, it was. It was indeed. So now we have entered the fun zone. I can see you're having fun already, right? See that? So the fun zone here, this is where we all gather as an entire studio. And when we gather here, there's areas where we play. Traditional gaming is very important to us. So you'll get a lot of people. They'll set up board games here.
I've seen a lot of board games in offices throughout the
They love it. They'll
building.
set up here and just play traditional board games. It's ping pong, it's one-on-one, it's all this stuff is all part of how we feel traditional gaming really does impact just ideas. And it helps spur, keeps you current, keeps you aware of what's out there. We also have, of course, areas to play games.
That's good.
The real games,
That's good.
right? It's our video game group and our Jetson chairs.
People regard you as sort of working in this very rarefied space on the PC, just turn-based strategy. You guys do realize there's value in exposing yourself to other games.
There's another world out there, yes. And we enjoy all that world. That's the fun
About
zone.
how many people are in this building?
Just over, I guess, 100 people.
Okay.
Yep. Very accommodating in terms of community space. Less personal space and more areas where people can go out, kind of work together, work in groups. We'll see that in a second. But first, we now enter the multi-purpose room.
The rec room, as it was called in the 70s.
Perhaps the rec room, yeah. This is our mind and body thing, you know, important for the body as much as the mind. We get together as a group, we'll do yoga in here. We'll lay out the mats, have an instructor in and do our thing, right?
I have to say, now that I think about it, since I've been here, seeing a lot of the staff, this is one of the more fit group of game developers.
Hey, that's awesome. You know, I take that. We have a basketball court out back, volleyball. We even have a tee box so people can practice their golf, but it's awesome. I think people embrace it, they like it, they have an active lifestyle. We encourage it. We kind of make it a home. We really do. People are here a lot.
Yeah.
And so we want people to want to be here and that
feel comfortable.
They bring their families, they bring their kids. Their kids will play on the gaming systems. They'll come in here and use this area, kick a ball around, go out back. So it's very, very important to us that we integrate that. But also the equipment. So you got people who might want to deal with some weights, really pump it up. People who want to do some cardio and run it around. But this is that area. We also we do art stuff too. We'll have traditional art classes going on. So we'll have a model come in, sometimes clothed, and they'll do their thing. But traditional art skills.
Well, civilization, important. You know, you have to understand artistic styles.
That's right, what they wore and what they didn't.
Yeah.
This is kind of like what I was talking about with how we provide areas so that teams can just come out of their office, join together, congregate and do their thing. And as we go through the whole space, we get more and more space. So that's a smaller area. Then we walk out into here, and we have a larger area over here. So this is, you know, it starts to expand. So over there is smaller here, a bigger area where people can kind of display their work. People can see, people can write. People start to get a sense of what others are thinking. There's nothing better than whiteboards because, you know, when you talk to somebody, until you put it up there, you don't know that they heard you, that they see you, that they agree with you. And so we love the whiteboard environment, gives everybody a chance to know that they're all on one page. And it works.
And it's oddly asynchronous. So you can kind of put it up and someone else will see it and come and respond to you when they see your work.
Asynchronous indeed, yes. Yeah, and then it gets bigger yet. So you go from that smaller area to this, and then this would be a war room. So the war room environment is where you actually start to display the game. So this here, you have, again, the whiteboards, bigger tables. You get the demo area where you can show your game and show digitally what's going on. And then those doors open, and this can expand so your whole team can come out.
There's quite a bit of thought.
It was. We had a space planner come in. We've been here for 3.5 years now, and the space planner really helped us meet with groups and say, how do you work? You know, how often do you use a big area? How often do you use a small area? How often do you not want to talk to anybody else? How often do you want to be alone?
Yeah.
and they helped us understand what the significance of each group was in terms of space. It was fascinating. I loved it.
Well, it really underscores also that in game development, it's not, say, something that's more linear like film, where you have a very clear hierarchy.
That's right.
It's very lateral, and there has to be, you know, a lot of communication.
That's right. That's right. So we've made it back. This is my space. This is where some really deep thinking goes on. Right? So Sid's next to us too.
I think there was a moment with Civilization where it kind of broke through. It actually took a couple months for that game to develop some traction. But at that point, we were getting this kind of great feedback from our players through the mail in those days. So that took a while. And kind of was a validation of our approach to games and how we were, how we were making games. So there were a few points at which new opportunities arose in it. It felt at one point it felt like I could maybe do this for the rest of my life. This could be a real career, not just a hobby. And but it definitely in the early days it was we had no idea what the possibilities were. It was just fun for the moment, and and that really continues to drive us. Is are we having fun making this game? You know, and that's the best sign to us that it's going to be a fun game for our players. So it's still part of our philosophy is to have fun when we make games.
All right, well, I'm just so glad that you were fearless because I'm having a lot of fun right now as a result of it. So thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming.